Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a pie chart in Blender that works like this. All right, so the first thing we're going to do to create this pie chart is we're going to switch into the geometry node editor. Go ahead and join left on that one. Move this up so we can see what we're doing. Click new and add in a curve circle. Plug that in there. And then we're going to do, we need to add a trim curve node. So this will allow us to change the start and end point of the curve. And then we want to change this to a mesh, so curve to mesh. And then add the profile curve. Actually, you know what, we can just duplicate the curve circle and plug that in, turn the radius down. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a gap here, and the way you can fix that is just turn your resolution all the way up on the first curve circle. You don't really need to on the second one. On the actual profile curve, it's unnecessary to have it super high res. 32 is probably good enough. All right, and then we want to be able to see what we're doing since we're making a pie chart, so add a set material node. And we'll create a new material, and I'm just going to make this an orange, and I will call it orange. All right, switch to render view so you can see what you're doing, and you can turn your radius down if you want. And then we'll also, so because we're creating a pie chart and we want to show where one color ends and the other begins, so we're going to need to duplicate all this. So Control-Shift-D, it'll stay connected, and then we can add in a join geometry and plug that in there. And then for your second color, we're going to need to duplicate this one, so let's change this. We'll make this one teal. Colors don't really matter, this is just for the video purposes. But now you can see the teal is overriding the orange, and we're going to basically want this one to start, and then this one to, we want this one to start where this one ends essentially. And the way we can do that is we can add a math node, and we can set that to divide, and then we can go in here and plug these both in. All right, so you'll see it basically disappears, but this is 0.5 divided by 0.5, so that'd be 1. But let's change this to 100, and now it's going to fill caps. So our number has disappeared here on the orange one, and I think the reason why, yeah, it's because we have these basically set. Yeah, so there we go. So basically, yeah, just make sure that you are plugging this value into the end point on one and the start on the other. So in this case, the teal is actually representing our value that we're showing with the pie chart. So let's say it's like 25. So you can, yeah, so teal is at 25%, and then orange is at 75. For most pie charts, they're going to start at 12 o'clock and they're going to go clockwise that way. So let's actually change the. We're going to add a transform geometry node, and we're going to rotate this 180 on the x-axis, and then rotate it back on z to the 90. And so now we can see that our teal value. Now let's actually switch these colors. Let's make this one teal and make this one orange. It's just a small detail. All right, so we can actually plug this in, so we can access this like from our modifier stack. So we're going to plug in our value there, and then click this little arrow over here, and let's go ahead and call that %. And then let's change the type to an integer, and basically that's going to cap it so it only moves like in 1% increments. So you won't have any decimals. So yeah, how would we add text to this? It's pretty simple. So we're going to do Shift-A, string to curve. This is how you add text in geometry nodes. And then we're also going to need to be able to input our % into the string. So that's going to be a value to string node. So we plug that in. It's going to default to 0. And the reason we're not seeing that is because we actually need to add another join geometry node. And you can see the text is it's in the wrong spot, so we want to actually change this to centered and middle alignment. And then also, while we're at it, let's go ahead and add a fill curve node. And we also want to do a set material node. Set that to orange. And the text is also awful, so let's go in here, and this should default to your downloads folder actually, or it'll default to Windows fonts. But I usually just add the text that I'm working with in my project file. And this font looks pretty cool, so we'll switch to that. And also, you'll notice this isn't centered anymore, so let's add a transform geometry node. I guess you could probably use a set position node for this also. And we're just going to move this up on the z-axis a little. Oops, wrong way. Move it up on the y-axis. And if you wanted, you could extrude this also. So you can add an extrude mesh. You can see that's quite a bit. All right. And then to actually have this value represent this one, it's pretty simple. Go in here and plug this into your value. You can add decimals to this, but since we already limited that to integer, it's not really going to do anything in this case. It'll just always be 0.0. So I'm just turning that off, and you could also just set this to integer, but it doesn't matter since we did an override basically through here. So this is set to integer that way. But we also want to add percent there. So just like join geometry, we'll just add a join strings node. Move this into strings, and then you're going to go in here and add in a string, which is just going to add a single value that you can set. So we'll say percent. Plug that in there, and then that looks all right. If you don't want that shadow there, you could turn the scale down, move your camera. Well, not the camera. You can move the light. Several different things you could do. You could also just remove the extrude node completely. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And if we just go over here, we can change this. We don't really want this to hit negative percentages. And the way we could fix that is we could add a clamp value node. Yeah, so that is not working. I'm looking at my other file to see why that's not actually doing what we want it to do. Range, let's try that. Well, I'm sure there's a way to fix that, but if you're just careful with your values, this node setup will work just fine. So you can go all the way up to 100. It should. I'm not sure why that didn't actually work. Oh, I see why. Okay, so basically connect those, and then you can add in. There we go. There, now it works. Okay, so yeah, you just have to be careful about that with geometry nodes. You want to make sure that you're putting your inputs where they count. So the reason that wasn't working is because this was plugged in to our values on the actual pie chart, but it wasn't plugged in for the string value. Thanks for watching. This is my first Blender YouTube tutorial, and yeah, I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe for more content. Thanks.